The Gamers, Kyla's Rescue, written and narrated by C. Taylor, edited to meet YouTube guidelines. To purchase the unedited book, please click the link in the description. Chapter 9. From Jareth's perspective, Jareth followed the general back to the bridge. "What do you think?" the general asked when they both felt they were far enough away to not be heard by their guest. Jareth raised his eyebrows and shook his head. "General Arbin, I don't even know where to start. I think Cade may have sent the wrong man. All my skills, I'm not sure any of them will work with her," he admitted, frustration mixed with admiration in his voice. General Arbin chuckled. "I think you underestimate your abilities. She said more to you in the few hours you've been here than she said in all the 3 days since she arrived." Jareth's hand raised and rubbed the back of his neck. How am I supposed to work with someone who doesn't seem to have any form of self-interest? Now General Arbin shook his head. "I don't know, but we need to think of something. I didn't know she was planning on leaving once Kyla is well. I understand why, but we need her. Making a plan to get her to stay is now a top priority." Sometime later, Cade answered on the first alert. "Jareth, what took you so long?" Jareth let out a deep breath. "Dude, I don't even know where to begin." "Is she a danger to Kyla?" Cade cut straight to the information he needed. "It's early, but at this point I have to say no," he admitted. Before meeting her, he was convinced Guy was enemy number one. Cade's face muscles clenched. "What is your evidence?" "I'm sending you some more footage. I have to warn you, though, at least through part of it, you should be sitting down." General Arvin leaned over and talked low to Jareth. "When she reset her own shoulder?" he asked softly. Jareth nodded. The general groaned. "I didn't think I could see anything that would surprise me anymore, but that did." Jareth nodded in agreement as they watched the footage he caught with the recorder on his spacesuit. "I only caught the end. Her shoulder was already dislocated by the time I got there. The video footage started with him approaching the craft. Then sounds of a fight picked up as he neared. He started to run, caught the privateer throwing her across the room. He blocked most of the view of Sky as he grabbed the bar. Her arm quickly snatched the blaster on the floor by her and shot right before Jareth did the same. Perfect aim, center mass, with her shoulder dislocated," Jareth explained. Cade let out a deep breath. "Okay, I agree that was impressive, but I didn't need to be sitting for this." "Oh, wait for it," he warned. The video played. His standoff with Sky, her refusal to let him help or even touch her. Then she moved into position, her useless arm against her leg. She kept the blaster pointed at him until General Arbin confirmed he was not a threat. She lowered the blaster. Jareth had to close his eyes for the next part. The sound still made him flinch. Cade cursed. "Oh, wow. That was... wow." "She passed out right after because she hasn't eaten for 3 days. The scan I did on her once we were back on the ship confirms this." She explained that she had cost them a pilot and brought a friend by mistake. She didn't want to use any of the general's needed resources. Cade leaned back in his chair, processing this new information. She apparently read a lot while she lived on Suenia. Her understanding of military procedure, history, what planets carry what resources, you name it, we haven't found anything she doesn't seem to know. Kate turned to the general. "Does she know who you are?" General Arbin leaned in. "She hasn't asked, and I haven't told her. Ryland said she told him the warship was decommissioned and guessed the right time frame. I think she recognizes some, if not all, of my commendations. The plans and strategies she's offered followed procedures under the last potentate and not current policy. Other than that, she doesn't really talk much." Cade nodded and turned back to Jareth. "Preliminary assessment. All signs point toward neurodivergent, but exactly what aspects, I can't confirm. Whatever intel you got from her life on Suenia is probably correct." "At least that is relief," Kate said, taking a deep breath. "Okay, she's now as valuable an asset as Kyla. Jareth, she remains your focus." Jareth interrupted. "I don't think I'm the right person for this, man. My skills will not work on her, and I'm not an expert for her condition." Kate thought a moment. "You're our only option that can be trusted with this." The general stepped forward. "He's doing better with her than he's admitting. I think he may be the only person that could work with her until Kyla wakes." Now Jareth looked at the general like he was the betrayer. Then he realized he would be required to spend more time with her. This wasn't going to be so bad. Agreed. Find out where Sky found Kyla the night of the escape. I need the location so I can find the footage. And make sure she eats, he instructed, then looked at another screen. General Arbin, I'm sending another ration shipment. Will be plenty for the next few months. Transfer set for Valbari next week. I'll send you the coordinates. Still working on a few things here before I can come. If Kyla wakes before then, no one talks to her before I do. From Sky's perspective, Sky was careful to keep her breathing calm as she watched and listened. Both men nodded. A general was deferring to a civilian? And not just any general. She'd been working with General Arbin this whole time. Who was this Cade? What was his connection to Jareth? Who the hell was this Jareth and why was he analyzing her? So much information in such a short time. She needed time to process. Pieces were starting to fit, but others didn't seem to even belong to the same puzzle. She was tucked in a back corner of the bridge, back against the wall, cylinder pointed in front of her. She had made her way to the bridge, carefully gliding against the walls, allowing the light beam to hide her completely. She had used this method many times over the last several days to get familiar with every aspect of the warship, especially the areas she was forbidden to enter. She was familiar with nearly every inch of the craft. She started to sense this meeting was coming to a close. She silently moved out of her corner and made her way to the door. A soldier was just leaving, and she slipped through with him. She needed to take the shortest route back. It would be busier and more difficult than other routes, but she was pretty sure the men would go directly back to the medical suite. The passages she needed weren't as busy as she feared, and she was able to move faster than expected. Rylan and Jenicky ran past her. They stopped in front of Jenicky's quarters. Rylan grabbed Jenicky from behind, arms encircling her waist the moment she placed her hand in the scanner to access her room. Sky had to stop and wait until they both went into the room and the door closed. "How can you stand her?" Jenicky asked as Ryland's hand moved to her chest. Jenicky leaned into it as he added pressure. "I didn't have a choice on Suinia, but I do now." Ryland laughed as they stumbled into Jenicky's room and the door shished closed. It wasn't the worst thing she'd heard him say about her when he didn't think she could hear, or straight to her face, but it always stung. With the door closed, she continued her journey. Some time later. Sky had gotten back to the medical suite with more time to spare than she thought. She changed out of her Swinia clothes and back into her medical gown, hid her bag again, and was sitting on the medical berth. She wasn't even bothering to pretend to be busy. She had just gotten a lot of information and needed time to think. She sat there reviewing everything in her mind. She checked the time, started to worry she left the bridge too early. What information had she missed by leaving when she did? She wished for the millionth time Kyla was awake. Sky was good at getting information, but it was always Kyla that saw the patterns. Sky was overwhelmed by the knowledge she was gathering and lost to know what to do about any of it. Her only direction was to get the medicine Kyla needed so she could wake up. Lost in her thoughts, she didn't notice the presence entering the room until he was nearly to her. Startled, she snapped to her feet, faced her opponent, planted her feet, and prepared. That face, that dimple. He was smiling and completely calm. Diamond defense, Jareth recognized. Very effective in close combat. I'm impressed. Sky flinched. She was used to people just thinking she was weird, unaccustomed to anyone recognizing her actions. Darman was a very old defense, and therefore not many knew how to counter it. He was different. He was also holding a tray of food. Sky almost groaned. She had to find a viable reason not to eat whatever he'd brought. If the conversation she just heard was any indication, he would be quite insistent. "Sorry, you're quieter than most, and I don't like being surprised." She lowered her arms and turned to her shelves. She sensed him putting the tray down on the table and moving close to her, not touching, but still too close. Sky took a step forward to widen the gap, but so did Jareth right after, moving his arms to press against the shelves on both sides of her. He still wasn't touching her, but only if she didn't move. "Time to eat," he whispered, his breath ruffling the hair by her ear. Her lungs inhaled sharply as her body tingled. Her heart rate increased. She heard a slight pounding sound in her ears. The sensations were strong, unfamiliar, and confusing. Any thoughts in her head scattered as she focused on her body, trying to figure out how to stop what it was doing, all while unable to move the shelves in front of her, him a breath away behind her. Her eyes danced as they looked around the shelves, hoping it would help her scattered thoughts organize into reason, into a plan. Jareth didn't move, seemingly waiting for her response, but so close she couldn't see his face, his eyes. She cleared her throat. Thank you, smells delicious, she offered, hoping he would be satisfied and leave the room. Then she could find a way to return it to the mess uneaten for the soldiers that needed it. It is, he whispered again. Her body reacted again. She closed her eyes to shut out the light, wanting to cover her ears, but couldn't move her arms without touching him. She needed to calm herself. I brought enough for both of us. This time she didn't feel his breath. His words were softer, more gentle. Her body calmed with his words. She took a few calming breaths. He wasn't going to let this go. She would have to do the one thing she knew would get him to stop and leave, and most likely never want to see her again. She braced herself for the backlash it always caused. I'm not going to eat it, she stated bluntly. There was something he didn't understand. It wasn't that she didn't want to eat, but once her mind had decided there wasn't enough resources, physically she couldn't eat, couldn't even make herself eat. There was a four-man team sent to extract you. Kyla had told Cade they needed to get to you first, then meet Kyla's escort at the port. Then they would get both of you out safely. You were already at the port when the extraction team got to your unit. They are currently enjoying themselves in your penthouse waiting to be extracted, which will still take a few days. They keep telling Cade he doesn't have to rush. Your resources are keeping them safe and quite content, so you can eat. Cade? She asked, feigning ignorance. My brother. I'm Jareth, by the way. She nodded her head again, pretending this was new information. Sky started the calculations in her head. Four of the general's men using her resources. The smell of the food was making it difficult to double check her numbers, wanting it to even out in her head. One more inhale through her nose, and her mind agreed the numbers made it okay for her to eat. She lowered her head and nodded, still not moving, suddenly more afraid of being touched by this man than anything else, mainly because when he touched her, it didn't hurt. Jareth moved back, and Sky breathed out in relief as they both moved to the table. Each taking a seat, they both reached for the food at the same time. Sky carefully watched to make sure her hand stayed well away from his. If they need any settings changed or supplies, I have a remote device I can use for the authorization, she offered and took her first bite in 3 days. Her body involuntarily shivered, demanding more. She kept control and slowly took another bite. Jareth's head tilted. You can remotely change your unit on Suinia from here? Sky shrugged and nodded. It was a program that Kyla had developed and was on her tablet right now. Since Kyla was the one behind all this and let this Cade person be in charge of everything, she figured it wouldn't hurt to tell. And you have it here? Oh, that one she didn't think through. She put down her eating utensil and rubbed the knuckle of her finger against her bottom lip as she debated. It was currently in her bag with all her trinkets, some of which Kyla didn't even know about. Trusting people was not a skill she'd ever been able to develop, but to her knowledge, neither had Kyla, and she seemed to trust these men. Reluctantly, she moved to the place where she concealed her bag and grabbed the tablet. Her clothes tumbled out as she pulled. She bent down to gather them. You have clothes? He asked. This made her smile, a sensation that felt foreign with anyone other than Kyla. I didn't arrive here bare, she quipped. She heard him make a strange, faint groan that confused her. You didn't offer to wear them when we left to make plans for the Niobe mission. It was a statement, but he made it sound like a question. She finished refolding her clothes and placed them back in her bag, stood, and turned back to the table with the tablet. It didn't seem like you all wanted me to come. I'm sorry if I was too pushy. I really only wanted to help. Boundaries didn't come naturally to her, but she also knew that wasn't the reason they didn't want her along. She needed an excuse the moment she saw her clothes fall out of the bag and hoped it would also make them feel guilty for excluding her in the future. She needed all the intel she could get until Kyle awoke and made sense of it all. She saw his eyes soften. She sat at the table and looked at him. What word or phrase would the extraction team recognize so they will answer an alert? Jareth paused a moment, then admitted. General Arbin. She carefully showed no reaction to this name and tapped it into the tablet. Once it started to beep the alert, she passed the tablet to Jareth. He wiped his hands and mouth and took the tablet. Sky continued to eat slowly, knowing her body's demand to eat fast would cause it to reject all the food a few minutes after, since it had been so long since her last full meal. She suddenly watched Jareth move from the table to the berth she had rested in earlier. General Arbin, we're fine if you have other priorities. Please don't take any risks rescuing us, were the first words that came through the tablet. Oh, hi, Jareth. Jareth smiled and chuckled. Sky was recognizing more and more just how handsome this guy was. More importantly, he seemed kind. Add to that competent. Whoever he was a very lucky partner. Hold for now. How are your rations? Enough for several days, plus deliveries are already scheduled, so we'll be fine for as long as you need. Ask them if they want the settings changed. Sky tried to whisper loud enough for Jareth to hear, but not the men in her unit. Is that her? Is she a knockout? Jareth looked at her. The dark eyes she'd been trying to ignore sparkled at her. No, she's quite hideous. This made her smile, even laugh, which was something she was not used to. She had gotten enough male attention to know she wasn't hideous. She didn't think she was attractive and knew she would disappoint the men in her apartment. She admired his efficiency in making sure she didn't need to make an appearance. You're lying, they accused. No, she's all snaggletooth, humpback, hairy moles everywhere. His eyes were still dancing. She laughed silently so hard she was nearly doubled over. She had no idea how to handle this strange emotion and covered her face with both her hands as her body shook uncontrollably. Embracing this identity, Sky cleared her throat, made her voice sound deep and gravelly. She announced, I'll unlock the settings so they can change anything they need. Any rations or clothing, add them to the list. When you're done, send the alert and I will need to approve it with my face and eye scan. It was Jareth's turn to laugh. He quickly moved his face away from the tablet video monitor, mouth wide with silent laughter and body shaking. Oh, that's too bad, dude. She's got a nice place, though. The settings are fine, but we'd like to order a few things. It's been a while since we've had access to this level of goods. She got an idea and was going to use hand signals to tell Jareth, but realized he wouldn't know the sign she used with Kyla. She decided to see if he knew Universal Sign Language. She turned to him and moved her hands, asking if he understood what she was saying. He signed back yes. She signed to ask the men to keep extra rations packed in the portable cooler so it could be grabbed once they were extracted. When Jareth asked her why, she explained she wanted to make sure the other soldiers on the warship received some as a thank you for sheltering and keeping both her and Kyla safe. Jareth watched her a moment after she finished her message. A warm smile shone on his face as he relayed the message. This smile didn't show his dimple, but made Sky's stomach feel very fluttery. Had she eaten too much already? The team in her apartment acknowledged the order Jareth had given. Soon the call ended. Though Sky hadn't looked at the screen, something occurred to her. Those men sounded much younger than anyone I've seen on the warship. Jareth watched her a moment, then smiled, dimple again. Contractors was the only thing he offered, dimple on display. Sky raised her eyebrows and nodded. She noted that his dimpled smile was not his real smile. Now that she'd seen his real smile, this one just irritated her. To hide her discomfort, she got up and turned back to the shelves. He came up behind her again. This time she held her ground and would not make the mistake of trying to step away. His voice soft at her ear again. Why didn't you ask? Her mind searched, trying to make sense of the soft question. Ask what? She spoke softly back. You never asked who changed you out of your harbinger robes and into the medical gown. Her lips tightened, and she searched for an explanation, a believable one. He was so close she could smell him, and that scent forced thoughts into her head of bare skin against bare skin that she didn't understand. Made her want to do things like lean back into him that she didn't understand. Thoughts that were louder and more insistent than the ones she needed to figure out what to do. She needed him to do something that hurt her. That's what she understood. She made the decision to tell him the truth, to open herself up and admit just a little of her weirdness. His reaction would hurt and the world would right itself again. She took a step, not forward this time, but around to face him. He was so close, her arm briefly brushed his chest. Her skin didn't burn at the contact like it did with nearly everyone else. She locked eyes with his, connecting with him and opening herself up to make sure the sting would cause the maximum pain. I didn't want to know. Her words were strong, but she heard and felt her body shake slightly as she spoke. She didn't let the walls come up, didn't allow the slightest defense against the pain she knew would come. He just watched her, his eyes scanning her face. He was thinking that was good. Whatever he said would be well thought out and definitely do the trick. Her hand reached behind her and took a hold of the shelf there, determined to stay on her feet no matter the impact. He raised his arm, resting his hand against the shelf behind her, inches away from her head. His face softened. He smiled, not the dimpled one, the one that made her stomach flutter. I like that, he said softly. The impact of his words were more powerful than she expected, but ignited feelings she never experienced. Instead of the urge to run, she wanted to lean into him. Then it happened. His face moved towards hers, and instead of flinching away, her body moved towards his, face turned up towards his. The shock of this irrational act finally cleared her thoughts, and she forced herself to flinch away from him. Unfortunately, she forgot she was so close to the shelves, and instead of creating distance, she bounced off it and fully into Jareth. He caught her, and she heard the destruction of all her hard work organizing the shelves behind her. Medicine containers toppled, some rolling to the floor. She was only slightly embarrassed by her clumsy move, more grateful for a focus that made sense. She slipped out of his arms into the floor. She needed to fix the items and reorganize the shelves. Giraffe dropped with her and was helping. They kept touching as they both picked up the valuable medication that had fallen. Her body was shivering when it wasn't even cool in the room, and she couldn't figure out why. She wanted to tell him to stop. She could clean it up. He should go. But she didn't trust her voice or her body to betray. She really wanted him to stay. What was she supposed to do? She didn't understand anything she was feeling and couldn't even find a point of reference to start a strategy. Her body started shaking harder. She started feeling like she needed to gasp for breath. Her ears started to ring. The panic of feeling lost seeped in. No, no, not this, she whispered as she closed her eyes and pressed her hands against her ears. All her control, all her plans, everything meticulously planned to make sure this didn't happen. When she didn't know what to do or didn't understand what was happening or felt lost, it was like she was back in a simulation and she couldn't handle that in her real life. She felt a hand on one shoulder, then the other. It didn't burn. It felt calming. She let go of trying to understand her reactions, all her reactions to this man, and decided to let his presence calm her like it seemed to from the moment they met. It didn't make sense, but it was all she had. Gradually, she heard the soft words, "Breathe, Sky. Everything's okay. Just breathe." It was him, calm and kind as he always seemed to be. She took slow, deep breaths, letting her new world not make any sense and calm herself within it anyway. It was strange, but she could learn quickly, would need to learn quickly since the guy causing her confusion didn't seem to be in any hurry to leave. The shivers subsided. She looked at his face. His usually dark eyes, Sky thought they were brown. Light hit them from the side, and fascinated, she found they were actually pale blue, almost crystal. She vaguely felt her world continue to swirl, but his eyes were calm, sure, safe. That word, safe. Something she never thought she would experience had her lungs sucking in breath, and she looked around. Her world stopped spinning, still different and confusing, but she didn't feel afraid. Was this real? He was still holding her by her shoulders, eyes still crystal with the light hitting them just right, but she also saw concern in them. "What's wrong?" she asked, worried for him. He watched her a moment longer. His hands ran from over her shoulders to down her arms. They stopped and flexed right above her elbows. It didn't make her flinch. It felt nice. That realization made her smile. His face softened, then smiled. The flutter she felt in her stomach didn't worry her this time. "Nothing," he admitted, as he leaned back watching her a moment longer. He suddenly moved, let her go, and walked toward the door. "Get changed. I want to show you something. I need to step out a moment, but I'll be right back." Before she could say anything, he closed the door behind him. Well, now she couldn't follow. It was one thing to step out of a room behind a cylinder light with no one noticing. Opening a door with no one noticing was another. He had given her instructions, one she could understand and easily do. Sky turned to her back.